Some of those who went to Woodstock found the experience so overwhelming they have never left. Blue Halleck, who was 18, says she was a flower child then who came to the concert in her bare feet and beads. Today, she seems little different. She lives in Woodstock with her young daughter and her memories. And she proudly showed us the dress she wore that weekend 20 years ago.
It's faded, faded and funky, but still I kept that. Somehow I managed to hold on to this over the years.
Blue, that dress is 20 years old. You probably can't even fit into it anymore.
Well, it's not a dress anymore, it's a blouse.
Is it fair to say that Woodstock was the most important thing that ever happened in your life?
Yes, it is. I'll never forget being 18 years old that summer myself and being there and the freedom that I experienced.
Oddly enough, the last piece that was played was the Star Spangled Banner by Jimi Hendrix, reminding us where we were and who we were, that we were Americans. And so maybe that last piece, which has become a classic since then, was to remind us possibly where we had to go from there, back to the real world.
Paul Foster went to Woodstock in his clown suit and took care of people who took too much LSD. Today, at 54, he is married with 3 children and works as a computer software engineer in California's Silicon Valley. Mary Anthony got drenched at Woodstock waiting for her boyfriend, who never showed up. Now she sells real estate. Her husband is press secretary to New Hampshire's conservative U.S. Senator Gordon Humphrey. Halsey Clifton worked with the sound crew at Woodstock and worried about the danger from the rainstorm. She is 38 now and owns an advertising agency with her husband. On the 10th anniversary of Woodstock, she gave birth to a son. Christy Palmer is now 41, working as a freelance illustrator. And while she worries about her 6-year-old daughter doing the same things Christy did back then, she says her souvenirs of Woodstock have kept her on track.
As the years went by and my life seemed to be more in a conservative vein, I wanted to remind myself that that wasn't really who I was, that inside I was still a flower child, and Woodstock reminded me that I was, and that I always will be.
I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive.
At 49, Tom Law is designing kitchens and bathrooms with his wife in New York.
I think Woodstock was not about the music, and Woodstock was not about drugs. Woodstock was about people helping each other get through a very difficult situation. And that's what made it an important event.
What would you do if I sang out of tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me?
Ira and Maxine Stone are still playing their music, but they've made concessions to the real world, too. She's a successful insurance executive. He owns a thriving real estate business in Connecticut.
I think that what I've learned is that some measure of material success is okay. I'm not uncomfortable with the fact that we're established now. I don't feel like we've sold out.
What's the most important thing that you want Justin to know about Woodstock?
That amidst all the rain and the mud and the hunger and the cold, the thing that kept the people together was love for each other and love for music, and that anything is possible.
Oh, baby.
Ah, 20 years ago. Lynn, if the values 20 years ago were loving each other and love of music, what do you think the values are of young people today?
I think there's one value at the moment, and I think it's survival. You know, what happened in Woodstock 20 years ago, it was a much more idealistic time. It was a much more innocent time. The economy was quite stable. You could afford to drop out, do your own thing, and there was going to be a place for you in society when you decided to get a job. Today, with inflation, the problem is paying the rent, and they've got to get jobs.
Financial survival. You're not talking about surviving in a nuclear.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because there isn't a threat of war, and there isn't the threat of, there isn't even the terrible threat as it was of the nuclear bomb. And we're living in an age when billionaires, not millionaires, of the celebrity.
And it's also, yes, and it's a more selfish time. You heard what she said. What people did at Woodstock was come together and they took care of each other. Who do people want to take care of today? Number one. It's a much more we have yuppies today. We don't have yippies and hippies.
Well put, monsieur.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to come back with a show and tell. Hugh is going to tell us what he did on his summer vacation. Stay with us.
Couple stops in on their way to Yosemite.